The offseason rumor mill is officially spinning, and as I said in the last pod, the first offseason pod, the Phillies' name is going to be thrown around these rumors, trades, and free agents all offseason long. We're about a week removed now from the Bob Nightingale report last week that came out saying the Phillies could be open to trading Castellanos, Bohm, and Marsh. Also specifically noted that the Phillies are taking calls on Nick Castellanos. And we're going to start this show talking about Nick Castellanos. We're going to hit a couple different free agency and trade targets that the Phillies are currently rumored in. Going to give my thoughts on these, some potential outcomes on these situations, and then we're going to roll into a closing here because the Phillies, one of their diamonds in the rough, are down there looking real good right now in the offseason baseball. But Nick Castellanos at the top. I'm calling BS on this one right away. Right away. First and foremost, we know how baseball works. The fact that Nick Castellanos is a post-ARB player making $20 million, 20 teams are out. Out. Your list is now down to 10, maybe. Now you got to talk about which teams need a right-handed hitter, which teams are willing to sacrifice defense to get it, what team needs specifically a right-handed hitter in the top of their lineup that they're willing to spend that kind of money on. I would be shocked if there was actually 3 teams interested in Nick Castellanos, and I would be stunned if they were calling the Phillies and not the Phillies calling them, if that makes sense. And I love Nick. I think he's only got 2 years left on the deal. Don't love the $20 million. He's not playing to $20 million. But like I said when we signed him, he's someone you're paying for hot streaks. You're paying for moments. You're paying for, hopefully Nick Castellanos is on one of those heaters during the postseason. Haven't had it yet, but he has had those moments. He had the big home run off Strider in the NLDS 2023. He had the big game against the Mets in 2024. It's going to be forgotten because they lost the series. Nick Castellanos is not going anywhere. There's no trade that makes sense. There's no one taking that contract. I saw a Cubs mock trade online. A Bellinger for Castellanos deal where the Phillies also take on extra money to get it done. Why would you do that? Why are you giving away extra assets or taking on extra money just to get him out of here? That doesn't make any sense. There is no Nick Castellanos trade. But you know who else was in that rumor from Bob Nightingale? Alec Bohm. All the attention was on Nick Castellanos because of that specific verbiage. They're taking calls. But Alec Bohm was also in that report. And as of today, Jeff Passan has confirmed, and this is a source I very much take seriously, Jeff Passan reporting that Alec Bohm is on the market by the Philadelphia Phillies. And the reaction online here, I think, is a little bit crazy. We're seeing some of the fans that are doing the whole, why would you do this? Who are you replacing him with? Then you have the other fans that are willing to take a bag of Skittles for him. It's a very opinionated, emotional topic for Phillies fans. Obviously, Alec Bohm is a number 3 pick in the draft a handful of years ago. We wanted him to be a cornerstone of this franchise. He just had a breakout first half, made the All-Star game. He's got a little bit of he's building a slight little bit of a resume here. But hindsight's 2020. Let's take a step back. Let's look at this objectively. Alec Bohm's career thus far, we're talking about a guy that realistically, his 2-month first half that got him in the All-Star game, that's the outlier when you look at the whole picture. He has to do more of that before you can say, this is that player. Do we want to commit long-term money to this guy? We're 2 years away from him being an unrestricted free agent. He only has 2 years of arbitration left. It's not just that he had a bad postseason. It's not just that he had a bad second half. He was a 3-WAR player this year. He is a 0.8 at best every other season. He's 0.1, 0.3 type of guy. He's an average ball player for 450 of his 500 career games. That's the reality. So are you going to commit long-term money to this guy now? We're not just having this conversation because he had a bad postseason second half. We're having this conversation because there's only 2 years left to figure it out. You have 2 years of ARB left. And next year, if he hasn't improved, if he does have another bad postseason run or does have a down year, you're now talking about a rental with low value. Now's the time. Whether the Phillies lost in the playoffs or not, the Alec Bohm evaluation is happening right now with 2 years of ARB left when there's actually some value there on the trade market. And rolling right into our third rumor today, Garrett Crochet. Garrett Crochet is a guy that the Phillies were targeting at the trade deadline. Once the reports came out that Garrett wasn't going to pitch in the postseason, everything fell through. He ends up stuck with the White Sox. But long-term, Garrett Crochet is a guy who can end up being a guy, like a dominant, one of the best left-handed pitchers in baseball. If he can get up to the 170, 180 innings mark, could be a dominant force on a postseason team. The White Sox are rumored to want some position players back. It's not just a prospect trade. The Phillies are not going to trade Andrew Painter. That's not happening. It's off the board. Not telling you they won't trade Justin Crawford or Aiden Miller, but Andrew Painter is not getting traded. And I think the White Sox rumor, if it's true that they want position players, it opens the door a little wider for the Phillies because they do have some position players that they can move. And Alec Bohm, despite everything I've said here, not an Alec Bohm hater. If Alec Bohm is playing third base for the Phillies next year, great. I wish him the best. I hope this first half last year becomes Alec Bohm in the future. But right now we have to look at it objectively. If Alec Bohm can get you a Garrett Crochet, if that's the position player that you can put seasoning around to get a Garrett Crochet, I think I'm blasting the trigger on that. Blasting the trigger. If you can get Bohm without throwing Miller and Crawford in it with him, I'm laughing. I'm hanging up the phone to giggle and then picking it back up and say yes. That's where I'm at on that situation. I wanted Garrett Crochet at the deadline. Wasn't going to pitch in the postseason. That's what took that away. Garrett Crochet is what I call the perfect blend, and we're going to get into this at the end of the show as well. We're in a generation of what people call throwers. We're in a thrower generation. There's throwers and there's pitchers. The dominant super elites of this generation do both. They're throwers that know how to pitch. And Garrett Crochet is turning into one of those guys. He was a thrower out of the bullpen, and now he's a pitcher with thrower stuff. And that's scary. Scary. And the idea of having this guy in your rotation, we've talked about the Phillies rotation going into the next year. Wheeler, Nola, Ranger Suarez in a contract year. Christopher Sanchez on the books for 6 years. He's comfortable. You throw a guy like Garrett in there as the 5, you don't have to rush Andrew Painter now. You have a dominant 1 through 5. Dominant 1 through 5. Taijuan Walker's an afterthought at this point. I'm pressing the trigger on that hard and fast. But before we get into our next rumor, I got to give a shout out to Blitzball Battle 5, which is going on right now. Let's let Chris Rose tell you about it.
Blitzball Battle 5. We got the defending champion McFlurry Power taking on hook, line, sinkers. And I think the biggest question is, can anybody score off of Colin Stone?
That's the biggest question. Colin Stone won everything last tournament. He's got every pitch you can draw up. He can move it all over the place. Or will you rely on having to get the praying mantis to give up some runs?
The last guy that he gave up runs to is actually somebody he'll be facing, Dan Canobio.
Wow.
When you haven't participated in the warehouse,
she gets a little shady.
Prediction time.
I don't want to scare you here as I pick McFlurry Power, but Colin has just gotten better because since BB4, he's been playing in that professional Blitzball league with the Team Como guys. Hard to pick against the defending champs.
I'm also going to pick McFlurry Power.
But I think that old man Dan is going to surprise us. K-Mac admitted to us, I don't like facing Dan Canobio. We will see you later today for Game 4 of Blitzball Battle 5.
Now, picking up where we left off with that Garrett Crochet rumor, the Alec Bohm thing. One more piece of information I'd like to throw out there if an Alec Bohm move were to happen. If you do go get a Garrett Crochet, or let's say you just move Alec Bohm to move on from Alec Bohm. Maybe Dave Dombrowski's like a lot of the fan base. Let's get some value for him right now off an all-star season before he ends up being a rental with no value next year. Let's just get some pieces. That's an option. Who do you put at third base is the next question. I genuinely think they have options, and you don't have to spend money on Alex Bregman. It could be a gap year. Aiden Miller, there's a lot of potential there that he could move to third. I know he wants to play shortstop, but with Trey Turner here, and it's just, he probably has to move. Third base is an option. Keep that door open. Not saying that's the 2025 solution, but it opens the door for you to do a 1 or 2 year deal on a Gio Urshela. Or if you don't want to go that route, I even think a Ha-Sung Kim would move over to third base. Great. Plus defender. He's a guy that eats war on defense and goes through stretch. Kind of like, in my opinion, a better Bryson Stott. A better Bryson Stott. I'm okay with that on third base. It's not like we're getting a ton of power there right now, which is what I really want. Is what I really wanted to see from Alec Bohm over the years, is to see the power numbers go up. But they just haven't. And not only have they not, he's become almost invisible in these big moments. Those postseason at-bats against the Mets, man, it was the same fastball in. Pop up, pop up, pop up, pop up. They're just dominating him. Mentally checked out, getting dominated by postseason fastballs. I'm worried now. I'm at a stage now where if the value is going to be gone in a couple months, I think I'm really considering getting rid of him now. And I'm not mad at a Ha-Sung Kim. I'm not mad at a Gio Urshela. It opens the door for later. Sometimes, we said this last time, addition by subtraction sometimes is a thing. Getting rid of Alec Bohm doesn't necessarily make this team worse, but Garrett Crochet on the table, I would get that done. Let's talk a little bit about Juan Soto. Phillies obviously are going to be in the Juan Soto reports. They're going to be in any report that involves Scott Boras because Scott Boras and John Middleton are buddies. The Phillies are used as a crutch to up the price tag on these guys every year. I don't think Juan Soto's leaving New York. I don't think the Phillies have a realistic chance of getting Juan Soto. Personally, not because they can't afford it, because they can. Not because he wouldn't fit in the lineup well, because he would. Not because he doesn't have friends on the team, because he's won World Series championships with guys on the Phillies roster right now. There's just two monster powerhouses right up the turnpike that have the money and the need right now, and this is the truth. So I am not going to put myself through the mental warfare and hardships of thinking Juan Soto's coming here. I think they have a better shot at Roki Sasaki. To be honest, that's not happening either. But Juan Soto, I'm just go stay in the AL, man. Please just stay in the American League. That's really all I have to say about Juan Soto. John Middleton, do your due diligence. Ride that price to the sun. Anything Scott Boras needs to inflate that price, you do it. And then you go spend your money somewhere else. A trade I have not heard much about. Here's the one I want to see. Can we talk about this one? Devin Williams. We're losing Carlos Estevez, it looks like. There's a lot of teams interested in him. He's probably going to get $10 to $13 million a year. The Phillies would do that, but I don't know if they're going to do 3 years. Estevez is probably going to get a 3 or 4 year deal. Jeff Hoffman getting interest as a starter from teams. That ups his price a little bit. Might take the Phillies out of the Hoffman sweepstakes. Devin Williams just signed his final year of arbitration, I believe. Or no, they actually declined it. He's going to make $1 million less in his final year with the Brewers. And I think the Brewers did that to make him look a little bit more enticing as a trade piece. They're not going to pay him. They would have already. Devin Williams is going to be either his final year as a Brewer or he's going to get moved. I would go get him. Go get him now. I wouldn't trade Miller or Crawford for him, but if you can get a 3 to 4 player, middle of the road prospect deal in there, this is a guy that could be your closer. Not just now, but moving forward. Get him in here for $8.5 million this season. If he locks in comfortable 30, 40 save guy, you can give him extension. Now you got your closer figured out for the next half decade. And you can do it for not low assets, but he's not going to cost you the same amount that he would have a year ago when there's 2 years left on that deal, or 2 years ago when there was 3. The Brewers, once again, held their cards a little bit too long. Values down a little bit. I would be slamming the gas pedal on the, I don't know. I'm not sure who the Brewers GM is off the top of my head, but he's lucky he doesn't have my phone number. He's really lucky he doesn't have my phone number, or I'd be blowing that guy up. Devin Williams in this bullpen. We would forget about Carlos Estevez and Jeff Hoffman very quickly. We've already talked about the bullpen that's pre-existing for this team. Kirkering's coming back. Strom's got 2 years on his deal. Tanner Banks is just starting. Matt Arnold. Shout out Matt Arnold. I know a guy named John Middleton. I think you guys would get along. Now, we've discussed the rumors that have come out over the last few days, giving you guys my thoughts on this stuff. Now let's talk about what we already have before we wrap this up, because there is still baseball being played. It's November, but there is still baseball being played. And Phillies fans, I know you're paying attention to it. Our guy, Andrew Painter, is back from Tommy John surgery. He's pitched 5 games now in the Arizona Fall League out in Arizona. 5 games, 13 innings. He's given up just 3 runs, 12 strikeouts, 2.08 ERA. But forget about the stats. He's throwing 99 to 100 again. His velocity's back to pre-injury. He is spinning the ball so well that the advanced stat nerds are starting to take notice on Twitter. They're getting excited. I'm getting excited. I love watching him pitch. And going back to the Garrett Crochet topic, Andrew Painter has a huge ceiling as both a pitcher and a thrower. He has thrower stuff. He's throwing 100. He's got 2 different breaking balls. He's starting to work in a changeup. He has swing and miss stuff. And as we're seeing right now in the Arizona Fall League, just an 8.3 K per 9, which is way down for him. This is a 12, 13, even 18 strikeouts per 9 when he first got into the minor leagues. The K per 9 is going to go up. The fact that he can keep his ERA down around a 2 when he's not striking guys out, fresh off of an injury, that excites me. He's getting bad swings on hittable balls while also having invisiballs. He has invisiballs and he can pitch to contact. I get more and more excited about this kid every day. If you're not already keeping up with Andrew Painter out in the Arizona Fall League, get on it. He's got some more baseball left in him here this winter. 21-year-old kid, fresh off of this injury. You're probably going to see him next year. If the Phillies go out and get a Garrett Crochet type, or they maybe sign a veteran like Kyle Gibson to fill that fifth slot, might not see him until towards the end of the season. But I would be stunned just based off of the stuff, the build, and as someone who's talked to him a few times, he is a ball player. This kid's he wants to not just be good. He wants to be him. He wants to be a Cy Young type of guy, and he's built for it. 6'7", throws 100, has the mix. I can't say enough about this kid. And I've been saying for 2 years, he's an untouchable trade piece that's going nowhere. And we are right around the corner from him potentially being an impact team on the current Philadelphia Phillies. So that's going to do it for today's show, guys. Again, if you haven't already, subscribe down below. Follow us on all social media platforms. As the rumor mill continues to spin and we get more topics and rumors and maybe even some signings and trades actually going through, we will once again hop in here, discuss it. I don't think Nick's going anywhere. I don't even think that's a real rumor. Bohm, definitely on the market. Don't care what anybody says. You have to. Just off of how many years are left in ARB, you have to check the market on that. You have to. If you can get Garrett Crochet for him, pull the trigger. Juan Soto's probably not coming here, but you're going to hear their name in it. Don't get your hopes up. Devin Williams. Go get Devin Williams and watch Andrew Painter in the Arizona Fall League. We'll see you guys in the next episode of the Cherry Pinstripes podcast. Go watch Blitzball Battle 5 on the JM Warehouse Games. Subscribe to the Cherry Pinstripes down below, and we'll see you guys in the next one.